Hello, fellow innovators. This is Patrick Emmons, and welcome to the Innovation and Digital Enterprise Podcast, where we interview successful visionaries and leaders, giving you an insight into how they drive and support innovation within their organizations. Today, we're going to be talking with Reza Rooholamini. Reza is the Vice President of Architecture, R&D, Data Science, AI Product Development, and DevOps at CCC. That's quite a list of accountabilities, Reza. Before he joined CCC, Reza was with Dell during some amazing times and had witnessed firsthand the entire arc of cloud computing. So welcome to the podcast, Reza.
Thank you, Patrick, for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. So, Reza, if you don't mind, could you share with our listeners a little bit of background about you, CCC, your role, and the environment you're creating there?
Actually, I started my career as a university professor. I taught for several years. And it was the curiosity of how the industry operates and what happens in the industry that basically made me join the industry. I had these companies that were in the computing or the networking, data communication, come and hire some of my students, and they managed to hire me as well. So it was strictly the curiosity, not the additional salary, of course.
That was just added bonus.
So I joined the industry, and for a period of time, I also kept a foot in academia, did some adjunct work, teaching a course early in the morning, during the lunch hour, or late in the afternoon. One thing, though, that either I was lucky or coincidental, that every one of these industries that I had pleasure to be part of, a company, they had a set of things in common. There were parallel between them. First thing was that these were all successful companies on a growth path. They were generating the revenue, increasing the revenue size, as well as there was almost every time I made a transition, there was a technology inflection point in the horizon in the computer communication industry. And the third commonality was they all were very focused on delivering services that the customer needed naturally. They would go to customer on a regular basis. What is it that you need? What do you want? And I would go and make it. So that transition and that basically traveled through this industry and having the same common sort of parallel framework or environment as I joined from one company to the other gave me the great amount of experience on how to sort of deal with these technology inflection points. Every one of them wanted to endorse or leverage that technology. But there are basically a set of tactics and things that you need to put in place in order to make sure that that influence happens. So currently I'm with CCC, which is a software as a service provider, actually the technology jewel of the Chicago.
No argument there.
It's been in place for quite a few years. It's about 40 years. It was incubated in Chicago. Very quiet company, heads down. What attracted me to this company was the fact that this was like 2013, that time frame, where software as a service, cloud computing was in the horizon as one of the technology inflection points. People no longer felt like they want to own the software and they want to own the hardware. Just like electricity, the way you use electricity, if your device needs some amount of power, you just plug it in and you use as much as you need and you get a bill at the end of it. You don't deal with the power company's infrastructure. You don't have to have one of the generators in your home or your operation. So the same sort of concept. Why should I own the software that I have to pay licenses and this and that and maintain it? Why should I own the hardware that every 3 years I have to rev it and upgrade it and so forth? So I felt that this company was really a jewel in the software as a service industry. They had done that for quite a few years on a private cloud sort of operation. And that was one of the things that attracted me to the company, because I thought that's in the horizon. That is the thing, one of the technology inflection point thing of the future. Today we have, the company has a very large and very successful network. It's about 300 plus insurance companies that are on that network, utilizing the software as a service capability of CCC, about 25,000 repair facilities, quite few OEMs, the car manufacturers, parts suppliers. So the network has grown over the past 40 years from the number of the same kind of entities as well as different kind of entities. So as we indicated, my role at CCC is more of the architecture, basically innovation. What we have done, Patrick, is actually dealing with this greatest technology inflection point that we are facing. I tend to believe we have the largest inflection point in the past 30 years or so that I've been in the industry. We see it today. That includes cloud computing, AI, machine learning, deep learning, IoT, natural language processing. So the question is, how do we basically leverage these technologies to provide better services, more effective services for our customers, such that in turn they can provide their customers. Our customers are many insurance companies. Mm-hmm. So in order to achieve that, over the years I learned there are basically a few tactics that you need to follow. And if you do that, you will successfully basically bring these technologies in and leverage them properly. One is that first, every time you enjoy a company as a, with a charter as a leader, you always need to pay attention, learn what is in place and how does that engine that runs the company, that produces the product, the services, how does it work? Make sure you understand it. Second thing, you provide the credit to the people that actually running this environment, running this engine, and making sure the engine continues operations, so the revenue comes in, the customers are serviced, and so forth. That's important. And third thing is, I use this metaphor, chisel and the hammer. Just like an artist, if you're creating a piece of art from a piece of wood or a piece of stone, you need basically a shop to test drive different pieces of wood, different material. And you very carefully take the chisel and with the hammer, banging the chisel to do the carving. So the same sort of metaphor when you trying to basically bring new technology into an organization, trying to influence the engine. Often these companies, because they're all successful and they're in operation and growing, there is usually a need for tuning the engine a little bit, maybe injecting a bit of technology into the engine. So the same concept. You take the chisel and the areas that on the engine that you could potentially benefit from a new technology, you inject it. Now that is either into the product line or it is the internal operation of the organization. So that's one thing. The other aspect is you have to have a place for you establishing and actually exercising technical relation with your company, with your customer. At the same time, you have marketing relation, you have sales relation. I fundamentally believe you have to have technical architectural relation as well. So in order to accommodate that, as well as making sure your team or your people, engineers and technical people, have an opportunity to test drive new things and actually become familiar with the new technologies, you need an environment, a laboratory. So that's one of the things that we have done. Or every one of these companies that I've been, that's one of the things I do. We'll first of all give the team at least an hour or so free time to kind of invest in themselves by learning and picking things up, new things. And actually, I ask them to come and actually share that finding with the rest of the organization. That way they start having a feeling of ownership of that view. Similarly, we have an environment for them that they can test drive, not only do it internally, also do it with our customers. So our customers also are facing this technology inflection point, and they are wondering, how can I use AI? How can I use machine learning? So at the same time, we are wondering where is the place for these things in our portfolio and so forth. How can I leverage them to provide better service, faster, more effective? They're also thinking along the same line. So what better than joining the forces and actually do it together? Now that way you could also benefit from having an idea, a product concept that you know that it is a customer that actually has ownership in some of that, developing some of that. So you can get in the hand of the customer much faster and quicker. So in summary, to deal with this technology inflection points, we have created within CCC basically an incubation facility, an innovation facility, small startup within the company. But with the difference that this innovation facility, this startup has great ties to the core business. In other words, people that drive the requirement for the core business and so forth, they also drive requirement on what technologies and so forth we should be looking at, what would the embodiment of this technology in the product should look like and so forth. There is checks and balances, there is budget, there is man months, there is man hours, right? So all of the attributes or all of the metrics and all of the knobs that you need to run a successful business is kind of influencing the innovation incubation as well. So that's a little bit about CCC, and that's a little bit about how we have managed to bring these new technologies in. And today, CCC is in a position that truly has revolutionized how the claim processing happens. And our focus has been what we call auto physical damage. So when your car gets in an accident and you call your insurance company, they basically use our facilities and our tool set, our know-how to basically process the claim. At the same time, we have connection with the repair facilities. We provide them shop management software, the estimation software, notification to their customers. All of that basically is part of our network, those capabilities. So now with the advent of AI, which we have injected into our process, the accuracy of the claim, the speed from the onset of the claim to the closure of the claim is much faster, much quicker. There is more automation, there is more accuracy. With our telematics sort of business or leveraging the telematics, we can actually proactively decide whether something has happened to the car. So we can make very proactive, take proactive actions by notifying the insurance company or notifying basically the services that are needed to provide the help. So you see, this is how we have leveraged these technology inflection points to really, truly change, reinvent, renovate, change the way the whole claim processing happens today. And that has resulted in much better service, faster service, quicker, more proactive. So that's a little bit of summary of what we have done at CCC and a little bit about what it takes to do this kind of stuff. When you're facing a technology inflection point, these are some of the elements that you need to put in place in order to make sure you do leverage the inflection points and you are not left behind. Because in the absence of not endorsing and doing these things, you could potentially, as you can imagine, could cause some bad things to happen to you.
Right. So, get left behind.
Right. Left behind.
It's interesting. Many times when I speak with clients, they're like, well, I'm not a software company. Not really my clients, but other people in the industry, when they say, oh, we're not a software company. And my thought is always, well, then you're not going to be a company. Right? Given the horizon of events.
Exactly.
And they think, oh, my industry is different. And I said, cabs felt pretty comfortable about a decade ago. And if somebody wants to take over that really sexy industry, trust me, everybody's right. Got a bullseye on their back somewhere. So it's interesting with the innovation lab that you put together, right? And that environment. Some of the things that I've heard people in the roundtable and other people in the industry starting, as they're starting to create those types of environments, some of the challenges are you want that to operate like a startup, but it still has all of the controls and governance that goes along with a large organization, which kind of squelches the whole purpose. Is that something that you saw? Is that something you had to overcome, or is it just something, how do you handle with those challenges of clearly you want the business that makes money to be safe, right? And then the part where you're going to make money tomorrow, right?
No, absolutely. That's a great question. I think we struck a balance all of the people that are part of the Foundry, they're actually working on new stuff. But this new stuff also has a better roadmap. It's tied every new project, every new prototype or a new assessment of a new technology has a tie to one of our core businesses. The requirement for if this thing going to be turned into a product, what should that be? What line of business going to use it? What potentially customer would be interested to actually take it right off the bat and do a pilot with it? So these are examples of how we try to strike the balance between the two, the world of incubation, not much of it, processes and sort of control, and let's just go make it happen, versus making sure this stuff actually generates the result that we all drive towards, which is in the hands of the customer, useful, as well as contributing to the innovation, to the revenue and the growth. So you got to strike a balance. Definitely, if you don't pay attention to one and ignore it, that's not going to be, if too much processes and so forth, just going to backfire, kills the innovation. Too much of a, free for all, just do whatever you feel like doing.
Right.
Because the technology, honestly, is the easiest part of the equation. Making it have an influence, make an impact, make the customers, make the organization buy into it, endorse it, and nurture it. That is the more difficult part, as you can imagine.
I can. I think for those of us who survived the dot-com bust, where right. It was like, well, what value are you really providing the customer, right?
Exactly.
Build it and they will come is well known, right?
That's right.
The amount of times in 2000, I had people telling me, if we build this, we're going to have to have this big infrastructure to carry all the money we're going to get. And none of those spigots ever worked.
That's right.
Right? The big cash spigot never showed up,
That's true. So you really have to, again, the chisel and the hammer, right? You got to do better of each very carefully. And it is very feasible. Again, there's some fundamental things that you need to pay attention to. Influencing, making sure people see the benefit of the new technology or the new way of operation. You need to make sure people feel it. So that's why I'm so keen on, if you have an architecture role or R&D role, you need to be hands-on. PowerPoint is not going to do it. That's why all of my architecture people or team that I have always have had, they came through the development rank and they are very much hands-on. So if you ask me, Reza, what's the architecture for this thing that we want to build and so forth? We will do all the investigation, the theoretical investigation and this and that. But more importantly, we're actually going to bring some of those technologies in, take it to the lab and actually build an instance of a product that this architecture, this technology is going to be part of. And then when people start feeling and seeing and touching and actually see what the technology can do, or what the architecture is that will deliver, then it becomes much easier to basically adopt and adapt to it. So the hands-on thing is very important. So that's another element of making sure that these technology inflection points or the architectural changes and so forth that need to happen is more effective. Hands-on, show and tell.
So it's a great question. There's I guess one of the questions I have around getting in front of the customers, right? Making sure it's something that they will give you $1 for, right? Where that's kind of the big challenge for a lot of established organizations that are now trying to go into new markets, right? Or expanding for, getting more of the wallet. But is there something that you do to qualify these types of opportunities before you start putting serious dollars behind it?
Yeah, I think it goes back to my fundamental belief that you have to have technical relation with your customers.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the customer is part of, again, these technology changes, this new way of running a business, leveraging technology, everybody's whether it's your customer or the provider of the product, they all be thinking along the same line. How can I leverage that, right? So the world is, if you go back like 30, 40 years ago, when you had these big old computer organizations that they had the research arm, that they would put 50, 60 people, researchers in the same building and give them $50 million and say, you have 5 years, go develop the latest, greatest LAN technology, right? Or, operating system. That is the way of past. With the open source, with the cloud computing, availability of computing resources, what we have, which I like to call open R&D, is the way to go. Because any innovation, anything that it is sort of proprietary or it is your creation to you, probably would not last more than 18 months. Somebody else would figure it out because of all this availability of all these resources and research findings and open source and so forth. So therefore, the key to the success is joint open R&D, and who better be part of this network of the partners than your customers. So if I have an idea, that idea requires, let's say, a networking gear, and I'm not in the business of building networking pieces, right? I will go and find the best in the industry that provides networking solutions, right? And I would put the idea on the table, so let's work together and build a similar concept with your customers, right? So if you're thinking of a product, of a concept, you want to put a patent on it, that's fine, do it. But once you do it, then open it up to your customer base, to open it up to your partners, invite them to show them that potentially the benefit that we get from it. Once you get your customer to be part of the team, the technical team, be part of that open R&D team, then I think it's much easier, quicker to get revenue from that product. That's something that I fundamentally believe that, these days, collaboration and joint development is the way to go, especially with your customers.
Now, in the product that you guys provide, it's a solution within their solutions.
That's right.
Right? So that kind of partnering is critical for you to be able to stay, I don't want to say relevant because that doesn't really touch on it, but like the partnering is just something that's critical for your success.
That's
right? If you're not giving them what they need so that they can go and sell their products, which is, and many times insurance.
That's right.
And so, it's an interesting concept, the open source concept, and the idea that if you think you're going to own something, right? Somebody needs to, let Apple know about that sometime soon. Microsoft's even got it. So if Microsoft's gotten the message, it's time for everybody to kind of understand it.
The lifespan of innovation is about 18 months at most. Somebody else will figure it out and actually do it better than you do. So might as well put it in motion, spread the knowledge, work with the customer, get in their hands as fast as possible. So, but you're right. What we do basically providing the mechanism, the tools, the products, the technologies that our customers can basically leverage to serve their customers. So, for example, from the telematics, we have a very high-speed platform that we built that can consume data coming from the cars. These cars can generate 25 gigabytes of data per hour. Some is mechanical related, some is driving behavior related. We have the ability to actually consume that data from millions and millions of the car and basically detect events out of these bets that come in. Unfortunately, sometimes we detect an accident that has happened. Now, once we have that ability, we can think we can provide that information to the insurance company, that the insurance company can use that to more proactively service their client. Yes, Patrick, unfortunately, you've been in the accident. There's all kinds of stuff that, what do you need? How can I help? So, versus you calling the insurance company, they can call you, for example.
Right.
So this is an example of how the capability that we provide will aid our customers to service their customers better. Or, for example, this data can help the underwriting segment of the insurance industry to provide a more optimal policy, for example, by knowing the behavior of the driver and how often they drive and so forth. So, and there is numerous examples of that nature. That's a business we are in, to provide the technology and solutions that will aid our customers to do better service, provide better service to their customers.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I'm very interested in the that startup inside a big business. What are some of the unexpected things? What are some of those? You go into things
Sure.
with like, I think this is going to happen,
Yeah.
and then there's always those ancillary learnings. Is there something that happened that about the culture, or like how that group operated, or anything like that?
Well, the biggest problem we have today is the amount of innovation that our team does is much more than our ability to take the market. We have so much innovation but ability, you can't just throw innovation on the market. They got to be, customers got to be receptive. They got to feel comfortable. Most of the stuff our approach is to put it out as a assistant to what our customers do today and the way they do it. So incrementally, they feel more comfortable and so forth. So that's one of the issues. From a technical perspective, the engineers, I have this great thing produced and I can demonstrate that it works and so forth. So why isn't it in the product yet?
Right.
So there is that balance between, creating the speed by which you create intellectual innovations and the speed by which you can take the product into. So that's one of the challenges we have. But in general, as I said, if you establish a culture that within the innovation or the incubator, such that there is a dollar and cents, there is customers involved, there is checks and bounds, and there is technology, and there is innovation, right? There is prototyping and playing with the technology, tinkering with the technology, You have to have all of that combined. Once you do, then these kind of the operation becomes more effective, more fruitful, and some of the issues that you see, companies, almost everybody has an innovation sort of organization, innovation lab, but often they do not produce the result that they should because some of these metrics, some of these checks and balances are not there. So I think there is a balance that we can establish.
Well, I think you touch on if you're getting the results where you have too many, because there's an article, and I think it was Fortune magazine just a week or two ago, that you're right. There's many organizations that have what they're labeling innovation theater, right?
Exactly.
Not actually producing things,
That's
but
right.
There's a group of people who get to act like Steve Jobs for a couple hours every week and, have some crazy ideas. And that's 2 rips on Apple in one podcast. So I'm done with that. So I'm going to rip into somebody else next. But so I guess that's a great question is that, having so many options, so many things there, and then trying to communicate back to the people who created these ideas that it isn't in the product. Is there something where you're measuring like the impact, right? So when you start prioritizing how to take those, is there a process for that?
Yeah, exactly. I think because every project that happens in the innovation center, we call this, by the way, Innovation Foundry.
Foundry, okay.
It's really incubator within our, is tied to a line of business. The people that serve that line of business on the sales side, the marketing side, they are engaged, they are aware, they communicate with their customers on a proactive basis. The customers come to our innovation lab and actually continuously there's inflow of customers to see the innovation, to provide feedback, to touch and feel. That has greatly helped making sure everything that happens in the Innovation Foundry, there is a destination for it. We just don't do innovation for the sake of innovation. Every new idea and so forth that is being incubated and actually worked on, improved, has market receptivity, has a customer base that is waiting for it.
Interesting.
And it's because of this, two-way communication with the customers, with the account teams, with the salespeople, and their visit of their customers with their lab and so forth. So that's very important. And once the stuff is to some level of maturity out of the Foundry, it is actually in the hand of at least 2 or 3 customers.
That's great.
And you can imagine, if one customer says, yeah, I like it, I'm using it, right? The other ones will follow.
Oh, yeah.
And there's nothing more important than somebody that is in the same line of business actually endorses or actually benefits from something. Everybody else wants it as well.
So it does make me wonder about, you touch on like that locality of like these people are responsive to a business line, right? So they understand the customer, they understand the product, they understand that whole, value stream. When you're looking at people to put into the Foundry, because I could imagine there's a lot of people who would like to participate in that is kind of something they've been looking for in their careers.
You mean internal?
Yeah, internally. So resources who want to join.
Exactly.
Are you when you're looking at who to bring onto that team? Are there different characteristics?
That's a great question, Patrick. We also have this notion of center of excellence. I mean, let's say I bring in the AI technology and into the Foundry, and we produce series of products based on AI and so forth, right? Definitely, we have the vision that we want to make sure AI everywhere, not only in this product or this product line or that product, but all of the product lines, even to be used internally to run our operation. I mean, they are AI. That's our actually vision, AI everywhere. So the idea is, once you bring the technology into the Foundry, after a while, once you have incubated it, you have embedded into a product, or say it's a product, and it is successful, then you basically have created what I call center of excellence. And then the time becomes to have other functions within the company or other segment them to benefit from that center of excellence. And that is where you could do swapping in and out of the basically experts, like from the Foundry into the line of business or from the line of business into the Foundry, that center of excellence. That's how you sort of propagate, you expand the knowledge and the know-how into the rest of the organization. That's one of the attributes or one of the elements of our Foundry, by rotating people in and out. Once there is that center of excellence thing created,
right?
You with me, because all these as these companies grow and technology, especially some of the technology like AI, is pretty complex because it requires framework selection, it requires tools. To do it right, you have to have automation, this and that. There got to be a level of central operation. You cannot empower everyone in the organization to go do AI, because then you have a massive number of frameworks, a massive number of tools, and then things don't operate well together. Right? So you need to maintain that center of excellence, information clearance house, an ability or the way to basically inject that knowledge, that know-how to the rest of the organization. And one way to do that is rotating people in and out of the Foundry.
Yeah, the other challenge when you go the free-for-all, besides the Tower of Babel situation of everybody's doing different things, there's so much relearning, right?
That's right.
You're painting the same wall hundreds, if not thousands of times, where it's like, this is not meaningful behaviors, right?
That's right.
It's just a lot of wasted time and effort. And so
exactly. So you have to really be careful, because in general, when you are small and very, startup-ish, you do anything, you empower everyone to go make revenue, right? Do whatever it takes, right?
Right.
But when you are a successful company and you are growing, you need to have some level of centralization.
That's great.
Otherwise, it's just not going to be as effective. Cost-wise and performance-wise and interoperability-wise, right?
And it's one of the things I've always wondered, because one of my first companies, I tried to do a little bit of Kaizen, where I said, hey, we had the box, right, where people could buy ideas in. I didn't get a lot. And then one of the ideas I got involved a waffle maker. And I'm like, I think I might be missing the mark with this effort, right? So, and I think that, focusing on customer value, right? So how are we going to increase value to our customers, right? Not just create more
Exactly.
internal things.
My theme is that we don't do technology for the sake of technology. We do it for the sake of delivering better service to our customers. So that is every one of our engineer has that in mind.
Yeah.
It's just, it's the coolest thing, but that doesn't mean that, technically it's the coolest thing, but that doesn't mean it's useful. So it's only useful if it's going to bring some benefit to the customers.
That's right. And it's so interesting. So much of that value stream, lean manufacturing still comes back to, right? What did the customer request to? How did we get they were able to pull value from this effort?
But I also believe, Patrick, that we have to be pushing more versus pulling into our customer base. Like they do welcome that. I mean, traditionally, companies have done the right thing, going to their customer on a monthly basis, quarterly basis. What do you need, Mr. Customer? What can I do for you?
Right.
That's okay. But I think more important, when you're facing this technology inflection point, you need to push a little bit more. You need to go to a customer on a regular basis. Say, here, Mr. Customer, this technology, see what I can do for you. I have done a little bit of prototyping, implementation. This product, we're injecting this technology into this service or this product. It does have this benefit for you. So a little bit of pushing is also required.
That's great. The famous Henry Ford quote, if I gave the customer what they want, I would have built a faster horse. Right? So,
exactly.
But that is at that highest level of innovation of not just giving them what they asked for, but things that they didn't know could even be true.
Exactly.
And I think to your point is like with the technology that exists today, I mean, if you just think about a decade ago where large companies had so much dominance because they had access to software that other people just couldn't afford when enterprise level database was $100,000 and now you can rent it by the second, right? And not have to pay for somebody to manage, maintain, right? All that stuff is just, it's so empowering.
Exactly.
So it does create a lot of opportunities for everybody, but only I think you're absolutely right. We're at a very big point where you look at, the FANGs of the world, right? Facebook, Amazon, where they're taking dominance over everyone else. And if people aren't going to make that transition to a very software-centric life,
that's right.
It's going to be a short story at some point.
Exactly. That's one of the reasons that I basically joined the CCC from my prior work at Dell because of the software as a service. And I felt that software services is going to make up that big technology inflection point.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Certainly that's the case.
Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. It's always a pleasure.
A pleasure.
No, yeah, I love your perspective and your experiences. Aside from obviously traveling the Midwest for an education through U of I, then Wisconsin, then Minnesota. I don't know if you were just trying to get to North Dakota or not, but I really
too tired.
got too cold.
Right?
It's like, all right, this is it. Minnesota's my last stop. But I just want to say thank you for talking with us, taking the time. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Patrick. Thank you for having me.
And I also wanted to thank our listeners. We really appreciate everyone taking the time to join us and listen. And if you'd like to receive new episodes as they're published, you can subscribe by visiting our website at dragonspears.com/podcast or find us on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. This episode was sponsored by Dragon Spears and produced by Dante32.